What's up? I'm Coach Dan Blewett. In today's video, let's talk about your pitching velocity obsession and why you need to dial it down, worrying so much about your radar gun numbers as a pitcher. All right, so if you're new here, I'm Dan Blewett. I'm a former pro pitcher, and when I was in college, I went from 78 to 81. That was how hard I threw when I came in as a freshman, to leaving college as 89 to 92. Now I blew up my elbow. I got Tommy John surgery, and that's how I finished college. And then I rested up, got surgery, and then continued to play 6 more years of pro baseball. But I was a person who was really on this velocity journey as a freshman, sophomore, junior, where I did go from low 80s to low 90s in about a 3-year period. And I can tell you, it was amazing how hard I worked, the training that I did, all the stuff that I learned about my body and arm care and forearm strength and rotator cuff strength and hip flexibility and mobility, all these things that contributed to my velocity increases. However, I became very obsessed with the radar gun and very obsessed with the numbers and very neurotic about it. And I know there's lots of players out there who are completely consumed with how hard they throw to the point where they lose track of just how important it is to be a good pitcher and how important it is to be good at baseball in general. So here's the thing with pitching velocity and your goal of attaining more of it over time. It's one of those things that once you put in the work, it's going to be beyond your control. And what I mean by that is you do your arm care, you do your strength training, you do your conditioning, right? You run your sprints, you do your pitching drills. And after that, whatever happens, whatever amount of velocity you increase that week or the next month or 6 months later, after you do the training, you can't control if you get 0.1 miles per hour or 1 mile per hour or 1.5 miles per hour that month or whatever. You can't control what actually happens. All you can control is the work that you put in. And what becomes really unhealthy is when your self-worth and your self-esteem and how good you feel about you as a baseball player is really tied to that number. So then the spring comes around, and last year you threw 85, and this year you've touched 88. And so every time you got to pitch, you're hoping you touch at least 88 and hopefully you see some 89s, right? Everyone's been there. You're always trying to gain. And now what happens is you go out there and you pitch terrible. You let your team down, you let yourself down, but you come back in, and what's the first thing you do? You jump to the radar gun chart and you say, hey, how hard I threw? And they say, 87. And you touched some 89s, and you're excited, and this is great. Well, you also just sucked, and you hurt your team, and you didn't win a baseball game. Now, it's good to find a silver lining when you don't play well, and that's something that really good athletes do. They find ways to be positive about the stuff that went well and sort of ignore the stuff that didn't go well, with the exception of trying to work on it, right? So yeah, you pitched like crap, but hey, I did throw harder. That's a good positive, right? You can take some from both. But the problem is too many pitchers, they don't care about how well they pitched, or they care how well they pitched much less than that radar number. And the thing is, at some point in your career, you're going to go look back and say, did I have fun playing baseball? Did we win some games playing baseball? Did we compete? Was I a good competitor? Was I a good ball player? Rather than saying, how hard did I throw? How hard you throw is just one aspect of pitching. It's an important aspect of it. Don't get me wrong. I love throwing hard. I was up to 94 back in a time when 94 was faster than it is today. Everyone throws 94 today. And that's an important part of it, but I never felt good throwing 94 when I got lit up or when I walked 3 hitters and my coach yanked me. That's not what baseball is, and that shouldn't be your goal either. Your goal should be, I'm going to train as hard as I can, and when the game time rolls around, I don't care about the numbers. I care about helping my team win, getting hitters out. Those are the things that I care about. And then when I look at the chart later, I'll accept whatever the results were because I know that I worked as hard as I could, and the radar numbers are either what I want or they're not, and I can't control that. I can't control if today I throw 86 to 88, next week I throw 89 to 91, next week I'm 87 to 90. There's just a lot of fluctuations that are hard to iron out as a player. I went through them. Everyone goes through them, where you feel like, okay, I've touched 90. Now I should touch 90 every single time out. And then when you don't, you feel really crappy and you feel like you've let yourself down, and you can't even be happy if you did pitch well because you only touched 87. That's a really unhealthy place to be in. And so place you want to be mentally as a pitcher who's really striving to get better in the long term and who's striving to throw harder, because throwing harder does get you opportunities. It gets you a chance to maybe play some pro ball or play some college ball, depending on where you're at. Yes, you do want to see those radar gun numbers go up over time, but you just have to remember that you have to separate those two things when it comes to your on-field performance and how you feel about yourself. I was this person. I was very obsessed with my radar gun numbers because I knew I had to get to 90 if I wanted to keep playing professionally. And luckily I did. But I felt really bad a lot of the times when I just couldn't lock down. Like, why do I keep seeing 86s show up? Why can't I throw 88 to 90 every single time out? Why can't I do that? Why can't I do that? And the reality is I put in all the work. I worked my butt off for years and I put in the work. But then when you go out there, your body has what it has and it can't have something it doesn't have. So when I go out there and I don't throw as hard as I want, you just have to let that go. Just like the fact that you let, a blooper go, or you let a bad call by the umpire go, or you let the fact that whatever, you made an error, you let those things go. But a lot of players can't let go of the fact that they didn't throw as hard as they wanted to. So I think if you're a pitcher and you're really trying to strive to get to varsity baseball, college baseball, pro baseball, and your velocity is obviously going to be tied to that no matter what type of pitcher you are, you just need to think harder about how much does the velocity number actually have a hold on me as a person? Does it drag my actual self-worth and my self-esteem down? Ask yourself that question. Really look in the mirror and ask it. And if it does, you need to reframe that situation, because that is not a healthy situation. Your radar gun number is not your self-worth as a person, and it's not your worth as a pitcher. You can get outs. I've seen so many pitchers get outs who aren't hard throwers. And you can be a great pitcher and an asset to a really good baseball team, despite not throwing that hard relative to your peers or relative to the average. So your radar gun number does not define you as a pitcher, and it should not be carrying you into periods of low self-worth if you don't throw as hard as you want. So you have to ask yourself, did I do everything I could do where I have no regrets about my work ethic and my preparation? If the answer is yes, then the radar gun is going to be what it's going to be, and your performance in the game is what you need to focus on most. Because again, when you look back on your career, you are not going to say, I'm really happy that I had a 7.2 ERA, but I threw 89 or I threw 92. I'm really pumped that I touched 97, even though I was a horrible pitcher and I couldn't get anyone out in the minor leagues. That's not a good place to be. There is definitely a spot where you want to be good at baseball, because that is how you become a part of this collective fun thing that is winning games and competing and like being in pressure situations where your team relies on you and you can come through under pressure. But being obsessed with, did I hit 96 today? And that's the only thing you really care about, rather than getting outs and competing with your buddies, it's just not a good place to be in. And when you look back on your career, you will regret that mindset, I promise you, because no one's really going to care how hard you threw. They're going to care how you treated your teammates. You're going to care about all the memories you made, laughing with your teammates, competing, being in big games, being in pressure situations, playing in cool ballparks. That's the stuff that's going to go with you. And ultimately, no one's going to really like pat you on the back for throwing 95 10 years from now when you've hung your cleats up. So just take all this with a grain of salt. Velocity is really important as a pitcher, but so is having a healthy mindset regarding what your goals are and what you can control and what you can't control, and what you want as a ball player. And I really believe that at the end of the day, you want to look back and say that I was a good ball player. I got people out. I was a good competitor, and I was helpful to my team rather than being solely focused on velocity. Thanks a lot for watching this video. Share this with a friend. I know you have friends who need to hear the same message. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Grab a book. You'll find them in the descriptions below, and I'll see you here in the next video.